Well, first of all, it was noticed because of the ship's shape. And this is the only shape people saw out here in 1959 that got the world interested because it's in the mountains of Ararat, just like Genesis 8:4 says in the Bible.
But you know, you read into the Book of Enoch, a lot of this advanced technologies is potentially referenced then. And so all I'm saying is that from a national security perspective, we, the American people, deserve to know what the government has.
The Watchers descended to Earth on Mount Hermon. They take human wives, teaching humanity forbidden knowledge.
They've found Noah's Ark. That's what you'll find in viral news articles from all over the world. But things are not exactly what they seem. In fact, it's one of the strangest stories I've covered on this channel. So let's break it down and look at how it's strangely connected to Joe Rogan and the Book of Enoch. And we have to start with what the legacy media has told us.
They have found what they believe is evidence of the Ark buried in a remote part of Turkey.
Andrew Jones from California says the dimensions match.
In chapter 6 of Genesis, it talks about a 300 cubit long boat. And that, if you use the Egyptian cubit, is 515 feet long, or about 157 meters. And that's exactly the length of this boat-shaped object.
The article that made this go viral dropped just a few days ago. In it, Andrew Jones claims new scans show a rock formation that matches the biblical description of Noah's Ark. He says it's 515 feet long, exactly the same dimensions described in Genesis chapter 6. They also claim it's sitting 6,500 feet above sea level, which they say proves there was a massive flood. And it doesn't stop there. They used ground-penetrating radar and claim they found corridors and tunnels inside this formation. They've even been posting some of these scans on social media.
Everyone talks about Noah's Ark, but while the world speculates, only one team is actually doing the work. In 2019, we executed the most comprehensive GPR and LiDAR surveys in the site's history, all captured by the Science Channel cameras.
They also talk about 26 large stones found near the site, possibly used to stabilize the structure. So far, it just sounds like another group trying to prove the Ark is real. But here's where it gets strange. Right around the same time this story started going viral, U.S. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna posted on X, telling people to read the Book of Enoch. That's not surprising on its own. She's been very vocal about UFOs and often connects them to the Book of Enoch.
I think that the Bible's pretty clear that humanity was not its only creation, and I'm not saying that these are, items that were addressed in the Bible, but it is interesting that if you look at historical context and also documents that have existed throughout time in humanity, and we can get probably into a whole nother topic on that, but you read into the Book of Enoch, a lot of this advanced technologies is potentially referenced then. And so all I'm saying is that from a national security perspective, we, the American people, deserve to know what the government has. They shouldn't be hiding it, and that's what we're here to push for.
Yeah, we do.
Well, some of them are written by prophets, and then, but I mean, Enoch is apparently supposed to predate even the time of Genesis and talk.
The nuttiest one is Ezekiel.
I'm telling you, Enoch is even crazier than Ezekiel.
Like, explain the nuttiness of the Book of Enoch to people.
Well, it's okay. So if you read it, it talks about the fall of angels, thus creating really the precursor of civilization that led to the first flood. I think that when you even go into potentially the technology that was given to mankind by these angels, it talks about the hidden beliefs and theories in astronomy, etc., metalworkings, all of it. But it really does explain, you were talking about earlier how you have a lot of these religions around the world that kind of say the same thing. This is kind of the OG text that leads to those stories that we're hearing from many religions around the world. To talk about angels mixing with mankind and then seeding a super essentially race of humans that essentially were responsible for basically damning mankind to the flood.
But then it gets even weirder. Apparently, Joe Rogan has also been reading the Book of Enoch.
I got into the Book of Enoch recently, which is a book, an ancient religious book that was at one point in time included in the canon that was like the Bible and everything like that, but then they decided it was too crazy and they removed it from the Bible. But there's no debate about whether or not it was actually a religious text that coincided with the Bible, and it appears in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It is the craziest shit. It's the craziest shit. And I'm getting AI I go, tell me what the nuttiest stuff. The Watchers descended to Earth on Mount Hermon. They take human wives, teaching humanity forbidden knowledge, sorcery, astrology, metalworking, weapons, cosmetics, and enchantments.
And now these Noah's Ark researchers are also talking about, that's right, the Book of Enoch.
As we inch closer and closer to discovering the true location of Noah's Ark, one has to wonder how bad things were on this earth that God decided to just destroy it all and start over again. What if I told you giants once ruled the earth, a biblical truth hidden in plain sight? In 2026, we uncover the conspiracy of the ages. Genesis 6 whispers of the sons of God, fallen angels, the Watchers, descending to mate with human women, birthing the mighty Nephilim. Giants, hybrids of heaven and earth, towering over men, wreaking havoc. But dive deeper into the Book of Enoch. Quoted in Jude, details these rebellious angels teach mankind forbidden knowledge, sorcery, weapons, abortions, and pharmakia.
They've even been sharing clips of Anna Paulina Luna and Matt Gaetz discussing things like aliens and human mating programs.
Interracial alien mating? You had whistleblowers tell you this kind of thing?
He was a senior enlisted at the United States Army, came into my office in Crestview, Florida, in a non-classified setting. What they explained is that the military ran a very secret program where aliens that were living were in forced breeding programs with humans that had been abducted from war zones and from even the caravans of migrants. The testimony was that in crashes of craft that had been recovered by the CIA, it wasn't just hard materials, it was also biologics, but that they couldn't identify a human source of those biologics.
So now you have people talking about Noah's Ark, UFOs, and ancient texts, all pointing to the same source at the same time. That's raising some serious red flags. Some people think this is just a coordinated push to get attention, because let's be real, if Joe Rogan talks about your project, that alone can give it massive credibility overnight. We've seen it happen before, especially when he talked about those underground structures near the pyramids using similar radar tech.
Significant of a discovery this is.
Dun, dun, dun. I love the music. And geometry, so you know it's real.
You got to appreciate the dramatic intro.
Project Unity.
What has just been announced in relation to the pyramids at the Giza Plateau and the plateau itself is so incredible, so awe-inspiring and narrative-shattering that I have been sitting here for the last hour trying to wrap my head around the implications of what we were just told. Because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock. In fact, over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground. 2 kilometers. Massive internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far.
So if this is just about getting more eyeballs on the project, that's not shocking. But others think there might be something more deliberate going on. Because here's the key detail. This research isn't new. Andrew Jones has been talking about it for years.
Well, first of all, it was noticed because of the ship's shape. And this is the only shape people saw out here in 1959 that got the world interested, because it's in the mountains of Ararat, just like Genesis 8:4 says in the Bible, where Noah's Ark landed. So we're in the right area. We have a shape of a ship. And then when you look at the size of it, it is exactly 300 Royal Egyptian cubits. That's what Moses wrote in the book of Genesis. And so, either that's a coincidence or we're looking at the right object. And then we started doing scans. And these are non-destructive geophysical scans that can peer below the soil, like radar and ERT, and they're showing a pattern of structure that you would not expect in nature. And then just last year, we did soil testing on the site, and we found out that it has almost 3 times as much organic matter inside the boat formation versus just right outside it.
Yeah, so you did the soil samples. You found potassium in the soil, which indicates that wood was there, right?
Yeah, that's the possibility. The biggest thing, though, is that because we have a higher organic matter, and if you look at the photos of the site, you will see that this is a ship shape sitting on a mountainside. And so if it's just part of the mountainside, you would expect to see the exact same chemical analysis from inside versus outside. But we're finding that inside is different.
Yet somehow, the moment Anna Paulina Luna posts about the Book of Enoch, this suddenly becomes a global headline. You can't say that isn't strange. And that's exactly why I want to know what you think is going on here.